Alright, now that we've got the back more or less covered, what we're going to do now is tape it at the top. So once you have this taped, the reason why we only tape it on one side is so I can check my progress. Okay, so here we go. I've got my scale over here so I can reference it just to see what I want to have as darks and lights. And obviously photocopies aren't the best way to show an image because the blacks usually aren't that black and you might lose some tones in between. So when you're doing this, you're really looking carefully. And if you push too hard, notice here, if you push too hard, some of your marks will push off the printing that has already been put in there. So make sure that you don't push too hard when you're doing your sketching underneath. Okay. So here we go. What I'm going to do at this point is start bubbling things in. I call it, which is fairly simple. It's just a matter of taking my time and going slow here. So, and it's hard to do this through the camera. I'll try and do this. So when I look at this eye, for example, there's a lot of information happening around the eye, and the computer, when it does print this off or photocopy, it doesn't pay attention. It doesn't say I'm going to draw an eye. Basically, it's looking at it and saying, here's where the darks and lights go. How much of this do I mix? Okay. So what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to start on this point, and I'm pushing. I'm going to select this whole dark area right in there, and I notice that even if it doesn't really mark, that's why I'm using my Bic pen. So even if it doesn't mark, the fact is I'm pushing on this and it's going to transfer through. So I got a little hair here and there's a thickness to it, and I've got to choose where this bubble ends. So I might go to here, and let's say I go right into there for this light area. Now the nature of bubbles are that you have to actually have them close in, otherwise they pop. So this is one, and I could make that a number 1. I'll just mark a number 1 in there, and then I'm going to mark a number 2, and I'm starting to think ahead here and thinking this section right here I want to be lighter. This is obviously much darker, and it becomes a part of that hair. So even though it doesn't look right, I can't just draw an eye anyways. So I have to draw these areas in. And the pickier I get, the better it's going to be. Okay. So here I go. I'm going to make this black. Even though it's not truly a black, I want it to be a black. And I can't really write in there. So if I try and write in there, what's going to happen is you're not going to see the B. Or you're just filling it in. So you got to understand, you can't draw this line and just leave it. That has to be a part of a greater part. This right here, I'm going to have to look on this when I'm actually doing my work, when I'm doing the inking. Okay? So you just keep on going right through this, and maybe we'll run into some problems here. So here's a section. There's another hair that's running through there. And you can see the hairs kind of disappear and they reappear. Even in the background here, they disappear for a second, and then they're there, but just barely. I don't know if the camera even picks that up. This one comes in and it's thicker here and it disappears. And as I move my hand in and out, you can see the exposure changing for the camera. So pay attention to everything that you're drawing. This is going to be a 1. That's a 1. I'm going to make this a 1. And so I want this to be probably a 2 or a 3. Let me make this a 3. And so here I go. Oh, even though that shadow is one thing, you gotta be careful because that shadow can change as it goes. And I might even want to separate the two. Make that whole thing a 3. And if this isn't quite a black, then maybe I need to invent a 3.5, right? So if you feel like you need to make that call, then you go right ahead. Let's go 3.5. And even the top of this, I might even want to slice this in, because the 3.5 up against a 1, that's going to be pretty stark. So I might want to get a 3 in there, and maybe a let me see. Want that to be a 2, I guess. So, and then I gotta get that hair that's in between, and that's becoming part of the shadow in there. So it's getting complicated, but you have to just be patient and keep going, and you'll be all set. So there's a 2. That means this is going to be a 3. And already I'm starting to lose some of my information on my eyes, so I'm going to have to look here carefully and see if I can pick out some more stuff. This will be a B. And I think part of it's rubbing off on my hand here. You can see where the actual printing is coming off. So I've already worn away parts of the nose there. You can see these speckles coming off. So we have to be really careful about how you... I don't know if it's a humidity issue or not. So a little darker up through here. Right. So the more meticulous you can be, the better. Sometimes I leave these open ends, and that's quite all right. Just make sure you get back to them and fill them in, because the bubbles need to be self-contained. So I've just kind of transferred between one to another, and I'm picking out some tones right here that I don't necessarily see right off the bat. But then as I go through, you see, oh, wait a minute, I want to have this in there. Okay? So there we go. I'll catch up to you. So if you need to invent some things, then invent some things. And you do the entire image like that. And don't draw an eye as you think it should be, or an eyebrow. Draw what you actually see. You're trying to be as much a computer at this point as possible. And then later on we can go back into it. And once you get them bubbled, it kind of becomes more clear where one has become the other. And where you will choose and where I will choose to draw a line is two different things. And that's a pretty cool thing. Something to avoid, this nostril doesn't stand out as much as you might think. So it might be a black in here. But then you've also got a lot of 3s that are around it. And just so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb all the time. So I'll start to get that. So maybe I want this to be, maybe I want that to be a 3. Okay, and it would make sense because it connects up with this one. And this is actually starting to create something pretty cool. Even though it is an eye, it's starting to be deceiving. It's kind of neat. So keep an open mind to having different shapes build an eye for you, or whatever it is that you're drawing. Okay, so once we go back to the nose here, we start making some other choices. And what we're trying to avoid here above all is getting a Mr. Potato Head nose, where you say, I'm just going to draw a line there and a line there, because that's what my nose is. Now this is on the side. And I got just a little bit of white in there. And then they get this little thing that you have in front. Now Mr. Potato Head lips are also a worry as well, so please try to avoid that as much as you can, because there's the dark. And it's not just a matter of carving out the lips right here and making them a cutout kind of lip. If you notice, this is getting hard to distinguish. So it might be that you have some of these shadows come down into here. So you gotta spend some time and try and isolate these things as much as you can. Oh, the phone is for you, I think. And then look where the highlights are going. And I'll see you later when I get off the phone.